People say peace is found in silence, but I've learned some silences are just waiting to scream. When I signed on as groundskeeper at Hollow Pine Cemetery, I was looking to disappear for a while. Just me, the trees, and the dead. The place had been closed for nearly half a century, overgrown and forgotten, but the town wanted to reopen it for heritage burials. My job was simple: clean, dig, rebury. No crowds, no questions. Exactly what I needed. The first few weeks were quiet in all the expected ways. Wind through brittle branches, the occasional distant owl, the crunch of dry leaves underfoot. But then came Plot 83. It was just a routine redig. The record listed it as empty, once reserved for a family that moved out of state. But when I passed by on my nightly rounds, I noticed something off. It started as a faint hum. I thought it was the wind catching a piece of fencing at first, but it wasn't coming from above. It came from the ground. A low, steady vibration. Not loud, but persistent. It ran under my boots, deep and purposeful. I told myself it was nothing. Just old pipes maybe, tree roots brushing against stone. But every night, like clockwork, that hum would return. Always in the same spot. Plot 83. On the sixth night, I couldn't take it anymore. Curiosity, or maybe something deeper, pulled me back with a spade. I started digging, just a little. But the deeper I went, the louder the buzzing became. My tools trembled in my hands. The soil felt warm. Then my spade struck metal. It wasn't a coffin. It was a box. Iron blackened with rust, no markings, no name. Maybe 4 feet long, 2 feet wide. Riveted shut. No lock, no hinges. It wasn't on any blueprint, any burial log, and the soil above it was undisturbed, like it had been placed deliberately beneath memory. I radioed the town clerk. They told me no such container had ever been buried there. I asked if I should leave it. They laughed, said if I wanted a bonus, I could haul it up to the shed for inspection. So I did. That was my second mistake. The shed sat just inside the tree line, a rickety structure I'd repaired myself with fresh timber and a padlock. I rolled the box inside and locked it up. The humming stopped as soon as I shut the door. Or so I thought. That night in my trailer, I noticed the light over my bed begin to flicker. Not randomly, rhythmically like a heartbeat. Buzz, 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 buzz. I didn't sleep. The rhythm played behind my eyes. My radio hissed static at 3:33 a.m. My coffee pot turned on by itself. The buzzing wasn't in the ground anymore. It was in the air. When I returned to the shed at sunrise, the padlock was snapped clean in two. The door hung open, like it had been pushed from the inside. Inside, the box was gone. In its place, a shallow pit. Clean edges, freshly disturbed soil. Like something had climbed out. I ran back to the office in a panic, demanded answers. The manager, an old-timer named Merrill, stared at me like I'd spoken in tongues. "There's no shed of Hollow Pine, son," he said, puzzled. "Never has been. You sure you're not working too hard?" I drove back, fuming. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe the stress was catching up. But when I returned to the trees, the shed was gone. The ground where it had stood? Smooth, grass-covered, untouched. I nearly vomited. The next night, the buzzing returned. Only this time, it came from inside my trailer. It started at the foot of my bed. My boots began to vibrate on their own. Then came a tap at the door, 3 knocks. Deliberate, cold. When I opened it, no one was there. But something had been left on the step. A rivet. Thick, rusted, still warm. I didn't sleep that night, either. Over the next week, things spiraled. My reflection in the bathroom mirror didn't blink when I did. Tools went missing. Voices whispered through the trees when I walked past Plot 83. I tried digging it up again. There was nothing there. No cavity. No sign of a box ever being buried. Just cold dirt, like it had buried itself back. Or never left. Or I never existed. I started researching the area. Old maps, archived documents, anything. I found a single mention in a 1923 letter from a priest to a town elder. "We buried the vessel where no soul walks. Its hunger is sound. Let rest beneath the 83rd cross." That's all it said. I quit the job that night. Packed what I could. Drove 3 towns over and never looked back. But I still hear it sometimes. When I'm alone, in empty rooms, at night, just before sleep grabs me. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Buzz. Always the same rhythm. Like a knock. Or a heartbeat. Or something trying to find its way back up. They say the dead can't rise. But they've never dug where they weren't supposed to. Now, thank you to all my amazing viewers for joining me in these chilling, emotional journeys. If this story moved you or gave you goosebumps, hit that like button and subscribe to join us deeper in shadows. Every like breathes life into another tale, and every subscriber becomes part of our growing circle of listeners. Now, take a deep breath because our next chilling story is just around the corner. You'd think bones wouldn't bother a man after 20 years on the job. And you'd be right, at least until you've worked under them. My company took the contract to rebury water-displaced remains under the old St. Mark Asylum, just outside Paris. A slow leak in the catacombs had caused rows of human remains, stacked, labeled, reverently entombed, to collapse into ankle-deep pools of rot. They needed someone to catalog, clean, and render the bones. Cheap labor. No cameras. No questions. I was perfect for it. The tunnels ran for miles beneath the asylum. Damp limestone walls, heavy with mold and salt. The air down there was always cold, even in July. Most days, I didn't see another soul. I liked it that way. It was quiet. Or at least, it had been. The first time I heard it, I was categorizing femurs in crate 47B. Just the usual brittle bones, all tagged Monk 1784 to 1802. As I arranged them into the new ossuary chamber, I heard a cough, deep and throaty, from the far end of the corridor. It echoed just once. Then silence. I called out, "Quelqu'un est là?" No answer. Just that pressing, wet silence only the underground can hold. I shrugged it off. Could have been someone from the surface walking over a vent grate. Could have been my own breath bouncing strangely off the stone. I convinced myself of that. But my gut said otherwise. I should have left then. 3 days later, I heard the coughing again. Same place. Same sound. Only this time it came from behind the sealed corridor. An iron-barred archway welded shut decades ago. The corridor behind, it was dark as pitch. No lights. No airflow. And yet, there it was. A cough. Then a voice. A whisper. My name. I swear on whatever's left of my soul. It said. Fenric. But the way it said it, it didn't carry like a real voice. It was flat, close like someone breathing into my ear instead of across the hall. I ran. I'm not ashamed to admit that. The next day, I brought down an extra flashlight and my crowbar. Stupid, I know. But curiosity eats at a man when he's alone too long. I wanted to see what was in that corridor. Or, at least, confirm there was nothing. As I passed the sealed archway again, I noticed something new. Something I couldn't explain. The air was warmer on the other side. Not stale, not moldy warm. Like breath. I pressed my ear against the rusted metal bars. Silence. Then, a sharp cough, right against the other side. I stumbled back, nearly dropped my flashlight. Later that day, I found something worse. While sorting bones from crate 51G, I picked up a jawbone. It looked newer, still slightly pink in the socket grooves. But what stopped me was this. Fresh blood on the molars. Not dry. Wet. I dropped it instantly. Blood doesn't stay wet in an ossuary. Not even for hours. I went to check the logs. Crate 51G had been sealed since 1956. The next night, I worked faster, trying to finish early. My flashlight began to dim, even with new batteries. I clicked it off, then back on. It flickered once, twice, then shined directly into the corridor bars. That's when I saw it, just for a second. A silhouette, standing just beyond the archway. Head tilted, not moving. What caught me most, though, wasn't the shape, it was the face. Or lack thereof. Its mouth was stitched shut, crude black thread looped in thick crisscross patterns. And it just stood there, watching, even though it had no eyes. I turned and ran again. I didn't go back for 2 days. But when you're paid by the job, you return eventually. This time, I came with a grinder. I told myself I'd open the corridor. I needed to know. I needed to prove something, even if I didn't know what. The sparks from the metal shot across the dark like fireworks. The sound of steel grinding filled the tunnel, masking whatever might have been whispering. Finally, the bar dropped. I took a step inside. It wasn't a corridor at all. Just a small room. Dust-covered stone. Nothing but a wall at the far end. Except there was a mirror, full length, unbroken, leaning against the stone. I approached slowly. The buzzing in my ears was deafening now, like pressure dropping before a storm. When I looked in the mirror, I saw myself. Of course, but not quite. The reflection stood the same way I did, with the same clothes. But he didn't blink when I did, didn't breathe. And then he smiled. A wide, unnatural grin. His mouth stretched too far. He began to move his lips slowly, soundlessly, saying words I couldn't hear, but somehow knew. Words I still won't repeat. Can't repeat. Because as he mouthed them, I felt something shift inside me, like someone pulling strings behind my ribs. I ran. I didn't look back. I never went underground again. I filed a report with the city, told them the tunnel was unstable, sealed it up, walked away from the job. Now I only work above ground, landscaping mostly. I don't talk much anymore, especially not in basements or cellars, because I learned something they don't teach you in the manuals. Down there, your voice isn't your own, and if something speaks it back to you, don't answer. They told me it was just state work, compassionate disposal, they called it. A fancy phrase for digging holes in a pine forest and dropping in bodies no one came to claim. No ceremonies, no headstones, just small iron tags with numbers. We called them units. I buried 32 of them my first month. They paid cash, no taxes, no press, and no one came to ask questions. The site was 20 miles from a nearest paved road, surrounded by black spruce and moss so thick your boots vanished when you stepped. The only sounds were wind, the crunch of dead leaves, and sometimes nothing at all. That stillness was the first thing that unnerved me. You expect silence out there, sure, but this wasn't just silence. It was dead air. No birds, no insects, no rustle in the brush. Like the forest had been paused, or maybe warned. I told myself I was overthinking it. I'd been through worse. Spent 8 years in the Navy handling cleanup nobody else wanted. I figured this was just another version of that. But then I noticed the tracks. They showed up on my third morning. Deep footprints in the soil. Barefoot. Wide space, like someone was lunging instead of walking. The thing was, they only ever led into the grave field. Never out. Just disappeared at the center, near the fresh mound I'd filled the day before. Unit 16. At first, I chalked it up to animals. Maybe some vagrant. But no man walks barefoot in 30-degree frost. And no animal leaves human footprints with toes splayed like broken branches. I raked over the ground, smoothed it all out, made sure the cameras, cheap motion-activated junk the state provided, were working. That night, the motion sensor light outside my trailer clicked on. I went to the door, opened it. Nothing. But just before it shut off, I looked down and saw the same footprints again, leading from the graves to my steps. The scratching started the next day, under the soil, faint like something small trying to claw up. I walked out to Unit 16, heart hammering against my ribs. The mound was undisturbed, except for a slight indentation near the center, like someone had exhaled beneath the dirt. I watched the grave for hours. Nothing happened. No movement. Just silence. That same awful silence. I didn't tell anyone. Who would I call? The cops? The forestry department? The state contractor who barely answered my calls when I needed more body tags? No, this was mine to deal with. The next morning, Unit 16's grave was open. Not dug up, not disturbed like a bear had pawed it, just open. The dirt piled neatly to the side. No sign of the body or the tag. Just an empty trench. I stood there staring, shovel still in my hand. The tracks? Back again. Same ones. Same spacing. This time, they led from the grave to the edge of the trees and stopped. That night, I locked the trailer door, covered every window. I sat with my back against the wall, shotgun across my lap. At 2:43 a.m., I heard it. A dragging sound, like someone pulling their limbs across gravel. Slow, relentless. It stopped just outside my trailer. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then came the whisper, right beneath the window. Hoarse, dry, inhumanly patient. You put me down wrong. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. At first light, I packed every tool I had, marched out to the grave field, and started digging again. I didn't know why. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. but something inside me said he was right. I found him 4 feet down, naked, pale gray, mouth open in a silent scream. His arms had been snapped at the elbows, legs twisted backward at unnatural angles, kneeless. He looked wrong, like someone had folded him the wrong way to make him fit the grave. I couldn't bury him again. Not like that. I called the field supervisor. His voice was casual, cold. Was he facing east? What? The body. Head to the east. I told him yes. Pause. Well, there's your problem, he said. Protocol's clear. Unclaimed dead get buried head to the west. So they don't rise looking for home. Turn him. Rebury. That should do it. Then he hung up. I did what he said. I turned him west. It felt different. The air grew lighter. The birds returned for the first time in weeks. The silence broke. And for a while, I believed it was over. But the thing is, I still hear him. Not every night. Just now and then. When the wind's high and the woods fall quiet again. I'll wake to the light outside my trailer blinking on, or the sound of fingers brushing the siding, or the faintest whisper at the edge of hearing. You put me down wrong. I haven't slept on my back since. And I never, ever bury anyone facing east. Not anymore. There's a section of the cemetery I wasn't supposed to work in. No one ever said that outright, but you could tell by how folks avoided it. Even a map called it something different. While everything else was neatly labeled in numbers and surnames, this area, tucked behind a rusted iron gate, was marked only as Angel Plot. No flowers, no statues, just 27 small, lopsided headstones in a crooked half-circle. I'd heard the stories, of course. Everyone who works cemetery grounds for more than a month has. The orphanage fire back in 1912. 27 infants lost, all unclaimed. The church paid to bury them quietly. No visitors ever came. Still, when the head groundskeeper asked for a volunteer to relevel the stones back there, I put my hand up. I wasn't trying to be brave. I just figured babies. How bad could it be? The first 2 nights were uneventful, aside from the quiet. Different from the rest of the cemetery. Heavier. The trees around the plot were bare, even though the rest of the property was thick with pine and maple. Inside that little fence, the air felt still and cold. Always cold. But I worked, straightening the sunken markers, clearing out roots, brushing off moss. Some stones just had numbers. A few had names: Agnes, Peter, Emmeline, all carved with a shaky, rushed hand. On the 3rd night, I found a music box. It was half buried under a toppled headstone, metal bent and flaking with rust. I picked it up, brushing dirt off the top, and without turning the crank, it started playing. The melody was slow and warped, like it had been underwater for years, but unmistakable, rockabye baby. I laughed at first, nervous. Told myself it was pressure from shifting dirt. A fluke. But as I knelt there, the lullaby got faster. And then I realized the crank was moving on its own. That night, I left early. Couldn't shake the feeling something had seen me. Watch me lift that box. As I passed grave 14, just before the gate, I heard it. A sob. No, not a sob. A gurgle. Wet, choking, fragile. Like a baby trying to cry while full of smoke and milk. I froze. The sound was coming from beneath the grave. I stepped forward, shaking, heart thudding so hard I thought it would break my ribs. Every part of me screamed to turn around. But I didn't. I dropped to my knees and started digging. With bare hands. The soil was strangely soft, like fresh topsoil. Not the packed, decades-old clay it should have been. 3 handfuls down, the scent hit me. Not rot. Burnt cloth. Spoiled milk. I gagged. My hands were shaking too badly to keep going. That's when I heard the shush. A whisper right behind my ear. S-H-H-H-H-H-H. But no one was there. I left the grave open. I ran. Didn't even lock the tool shed. My trailer was parked just outside the main office. I bolted the door and tried to forget what I smelled. What I heard. What I almost saw. Sleep didn't come easy. And when it finally did, I woke at dawn to something else. My boots were wet. Muddy. The same red-brown clay from the plot. But I hadn't been outside since the night before. I was sure of it. Then I found the note, tucked under my pillow, written in a crooked childlike scrawl. We rock them to sleep now. Don't wake them again. I didn't go back to the Angel Plot. In fact, I asked for a transfer the same day. Didn't explain, didn't give a reason. Just packed my things and left. No one questioned it. It's like they knew, but the story doesn't end there. 2 weeks later, I was driving across state lines, flipping through radio stations to stay awake. Static, ads, static, country music. Then suddenly, that lullaby, the same warped, dragging version I heard from the music box. I nearly swerved off the road. The station was 88.1, an emergency broadcast channel. Nothing should have been playing there. But the melody kept going, soft and slow. I turned the dial. Static. Turned it back. Still there. Then I heard a whisper behind the music. I'm still awake. I turned the radio off and didn't turn it back on for the rest of the trip. Some nights, I still hear it. The lullaby. It comes in when the power flickers or the heater clicks on late. And once, during a thunderstorm, I woke to find muddy footprints by my bed. Small ones, like a child's. I've learned something since then. A quiet truth no one says out loud. Some graves aren't meant to be disturbed. Some souls aren't meant to sleep. And some lullabies? They're not for comfort. They're for containment. Night shifts mess with your head. The hours stretch, silence hums, and time gets bendy. But I'd worked nights for years and never had a problem until I took the job at White Marsh. Modern crematorium. Digital everything. Climate-controlled, card entry access, auto-logged cremation cycles. Spotless and sterile. At least, that's how it should have been. My first week was uneventful. The worst part was the quiet. No one else on shift, just me and the hum of the vents. I cleaned the prep rooms, monitored the cremation cycles, logged the entries. Standard stuff. Then one night, I noticed something weird on the digital wall clock. It froze. 3:11 a.m. Glowing red digits, perfectly still. I tapped the casing. Nothing. Checked the computer clock. 3:11 a.m. My phone. 3:11 a.m. The next second, everything jumped forward. 3:12, like the system had hiccuped. I figured it was a glitch. No big deal. Until it happened again. And again. Always 3:11. After the fourth night of that exact minute freezing, I brought it up to the manager. He chuckled, said the building used to be a textile mill in the 1800s, and maybe the ghosts like routine. I laughed too, but that minute started to gnaw at me, especially when the incinerator started acting up. Normally, it ran a tight cycle. Start, heat, peak, cool, ash. Every step logged. But then it began overheating, flames flaring too hot, too early. And then it would just shut off. When I checked the logs, they were wiped clean. No record of errors. No record of activity. Just blank gaps. Even worse, the internal camera, used to document proper containment, started showing footage of the chamber already full of ash, even before any cycle began. I didn't process anyone those nights. No body in. Just ash and a faint, sour smell. Like old paper soaked in vinegar. Then came the footage. Our system auto-saves motion trigger clips from all rooms. I started scrubbing through the night logs after those glitches and saw something that made my stomach turn. Me, standing perfectly still in front of the incinerator. For 3 full hours. I don't remember that. I watched the footage again. At one point, I raised my hand and opened the chamber door, leaned in, and whispered something. The audio was too distorted to hear, but the motion was clear. I was talking to the fire. That night, I stayed away from the incinerator. Just cleaned tools, checked logs, kept to the prep area. At some point, I heard the door to chamber 2 open by itself. I turned and sprinted down the hall. The door was swinging shut, slowly like someone had just stepped inside. Inside, the chamber was cold, completely off. But on the floor, ashes. No cycle had run. No log. Nothing. And the smell, not flesh. Not chemical. Something older. Like burned leather. Ink. Parchment. That's when I noticed something sticking out of the ash. My shoelace. I pulled it out. It was still smoking. Blackened at the tip. Same make, same brand I wore. I looked down at my feet. Both shoes were there. But the lace in my hand was ripped clean, like it had been torn from a matching pair. I looked back into the chamber. It was empty again. I reported it the next day. The manager said I must have tracked old ash in from another area. Suggested I take a few days off. I didn't argue. I went home, turned off my phone, slept with every light on. But the story didn't end there. 2 days later, I finally checked my phone again. My camera app had a new video. No title, no timestamp, just 16 seconds long. I hit play. It was a shot of the cremation room. Me again, standing over chamber 2, back turned, same blue work shirt, same gloves. The image glitched once, then cleared. I turned toward the camera. My eyes were dark, not bruised, empty. And then I said something, clear as day. Don't let me out this time. Then static. I tried deleting the video. Over and over. It keeps reappearing. Different folder, different name. Sometimes it autoplays at 3:11 a.m. I smashed the phone. Bought a new one. Didn't matter. The video came back. I haven't worked a shift since. Moved 2 states away. Changed my name on every payroll record I could. But sometimes, around 3 a.m., I'll glance at the microwave clock or the stove, and it'll say 3:11, just for a second, then flicker forward. But I know it's not a glitch, because that smell always comes with it. Burnt ink, sour leather, smoldering paper. And every time, for heartbeat, I feel the warmth of flames on my face. And the whisper, we didn't finish. They say cremation is the end, a clean, final process. But something down there didn't burn all the way. Thank you all for joining me on these deeply human journeys. Your support means the world, and reading your reactions and your own personal experiences in the comments. It's one of the most meaningful parts of this work. If these stories gave you chills or made you pause and reflect, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more. We explore the haunting, the emotional, the unexplained, and always with reverence. Have you ever had an experience like John's? Or maybe you have your own story of an unexplainable presence, a quiet moment that still echoes in your heart? I'd love to hear it in the comments below. Each of your stories adds something special to this growing community of listeners, of feelers, of souls who believe there's more out there than we often see. And if someone you know might appreciate a good scare or a good cry, please share this video with them. There's more to come, more stories to tell. And remember, sometimes the scariest tales are the ones that could happen to any of us. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video if you dare.